Now, The Larry O'Connor Show. At AM 630.
Hollywood actor Dean Cain is going to join us at the bottom of this hour, talk about his upcoming film about Gosnell, about the House of Horrors in Philadelphia. The Senate Judiciary Committee has said that they are hoping to hear affirmatively, finally, from the woman accusing Brett Kavanaugh of acts 30-some-odd years ago. They're hoping to hear from her by the end of the day today. Now, it's 5 o'clock. Is it the end of the day, or is the end of the day 6 o'clock? This is government work on a Friday, so the end of the day was noon, right? Well, if we hear that they've heard, you'll hear. So keep it here on WMAL. We first asked Tom Fitton of Judicial Watch to join us to talk about the president's announcement and his strategy for the declassification that should be coming out. But then we were sort of preempted by this story in the New York Times. So we're going to hit both of those stories, Tom. But, boy, I got to get your reaction to the idea that Rod Rosenstein had a meeting with top Justice Department and FBI officials where he proposed to wear a wire and that he would try to rally support from other cabinet officials to invoke the 25th Amendment.
Oh, it was all a big joke. Don't just move along.
Yeah,
the
sarcasm.
Leadership of the FBI and DOJ were only joking about spying on the President of the United States through illegal wires. They were only joking about invoking the 25th Amendment to overthrow him. I mean, this shows you that the Justice Department is really out of control. They think it's a law unto itself. Now, Rod Rosenstein, he has a right to defend himself from these charges. Supposedly he was joking, but it just shows you where his head is at, to put it charitably.
So you're buying? Are you believing that they were joking, or are you skeptical of that claim?
I'm believing that there were enough people who heard it to think that maybe he's not joking.
And set the scene.
That old saw, a joke, that's not a joke.
Fox News has additional reporting on this. Apparently, this meeting took place the day before James Comey's firing. That's according to Fox News reporting. And that actually puts this New York Times article in a different perspective, because they sort of make it sound like this was during the fallout of the James Comey firing. And also, we've learned that Andrew McCabe and Lisa Page, amongst others, were in that room.
And it confirms further the hostility to President Trump had nothing to do with Comey's firing.
Yes.
It predated Comey's firing, and it confirms that Comey had, and frankly, the leadership of the DOJ, there was a terrible anti-constitutional culture there. They rejected the president that had been installed by the people of the United States, and everyone has office meetings where people say odd things, but imagine office meetings where top officials of the government are talking about spying and overthrowing the president. Yeah,
you don't joke about overthrowing a president of the United States. Do you think that this revelation renews calls for Rod Rosenstein to be fired, and do you think the president would be justified in doing so?
He's long been justified in making changes at the Justice Department. The question is to get it where he needs to be in terms of solving the underlying problem that the Justice Department thinks it's above the law, it doesn't answer to the President, to Congress, or the American people. To me, this is about the Mueller investigation. This man appointed Robert Mueller, and you've got to wonder, again, was it motivated by the rule of law or personal antipathy to the President of the United States?
Well, and that's an interesting point, Tom Fitton. Before we get to this declassification thing, this article in the New York Times is also peppered with a whole lot of background showing how upset Rod Rosenstein was, that he thought the president had betrayed him, that he was being hung out to dry and thrown under the bus over the Comey firing. He obviously was not very pleased with the President of the United States. That does call into question his state of mind when he pulled the trigger on a special counsel and appointing Robert Mueller. That calls the whole thing into question, doesn't it?
Well, think of the conflict, Larry.
Yeah.
He's upset about an issue, and he appoints a special counsel to investigate the very issue he's upset about and was at the very heart of.
It seems like a little bit of a conflict. Yeah.
What a rat's nest at the Justice Department in terms of compromised ethics.
Well, and we were hoping to see a little bit more inside the details of that rat's nest with the declassification of text messages from James Comey and a lot of these players, as well as the documentation behind the FISA warrant for Carter Page. But the president now is suggesting that maybe he's not going to order that classification at the same level as he originally announced. What is this development?
I don't know. Did the Justice Department advise him? He says Justice Department, he met with him. Was Rod Rosenstein in that meeting?
That's a good point.
It just highlights the self-interested reasons the Justice Department and the FBI have for keeping records away from the American people. You know, the so-called allies who called him up were allies that reportedly had been involved in helping set up the spy operation against his team. The president, has said he hasn't reviewed the records. If I were him, I wouldn't give it to the IG to review. I'd bring him into the White House, review himself, bring some trusted associates with classified security clearances or members of Congress, do the analysis themselves, and then figure out whether to release them. Just kicking a can down the road to the IG. Now, for a select group of records, maybe he can take a second look to see whether there's classified material that ought not to be released. But the key group of records, the FISA warrant material, been reviewed by multiple members of Congress, Trey Gowdy, Devin Nunes, and Bob Goodlatte, and they said there's nothing there in terms of national security that can't be released.
This one line in his tweet about this caught my eye. So they meaning DOJ officials, agreed to release them, but stated that so doing may have a perceived negative impact on the Russia probe. What does that even mean, a perceived negative impact? Either it has a negative impact or it doesn't. Who cares about the perception? That's a political equation, not a judicial equation.
And it's, again, all about protecting the Mueller operation.
Yeah.
And it comes down to the Mueller operation. Fire Rod Rosenstein, fire Sessions, those are other ideas. Shut Mueller down, and maybe Mr. Sessions can get back to doing his job.
Also, there's a lot of speculation out there with regard to this leak to the New York Times about this Rod Rosenstein story, the 25th Amendment, that Andrew McCabe is behind it. The New York Times, by the way, says in the article Andrew McCabe would not comment, but we've seen that game played before with CNN and Lanny Davis. Does he serve to benefit from this leak and from this story, Andrew McCabe?
Well, it makes it look like he was trying to, he wasn't the bad guy. You may recall the leak that over which he was fired, he was trying to defend the FBI, saying that they wanted to investigate Hillary, and they were thwarted by the Justice Department. And, he lied about according to the IG, his involvement in that leak. So it's par for the course that Andy McCabe leaked this, because it makes it look like, they were dealing with this Rod Rosenstein who was wanting to spy on the president and telling FBI officials to record him, and they're the good guys.
By the way, Andrew McCabe's spokesperson said absolutely unequivocally Andrew McCabe had nothing to do with this. The original draft of that statement apparently said Andrew McCabe would never leak anything to the media, but then they realized they couldn't really make that claim, could they? Tom Fitton, in the meantime, are you getting the documents you've been asking for well over a year now from the DOJ and FBI on these issues, or are they still
we're suing for everything, and that we know why they're stonewalling on everything, and we're still, for instance, these FISA warrants, we had part of them. We thought we were going to get the rest by the end of the week, but evidently the deep state intervened to rescue itself again. So I hope the president stays true to his word. I expect he will, because the act of declassification, the order, was a brave thing to do and a heroic thing to do, and letting the justice have one last shot, if he's going to ultimately release them in a few weeks, will still be historic nevertheless.
I was promised a declassification, Tom Fitton. You promised me. We're going to get it. We're going to get it. It's just going to take a little while.
We're in court no matter what happens.
Judicial Watch is the organization that Tom heads up, and he is doing great work in this town. Someone is. It's judicialwatch.org. Thank you, Tom. Have a good weekend.
You're welcome. Thank you, Larry.
5:14. I should have asked him about Brett Kavanaugh, too. They go to Blessed Sacrament together. Sure. We're all in the community.